Welcome back to Speaking from Experience, the podcast. And tonight I have the honor of being here at This Old Guitar in Seymour, Indiana. And I get the chance to talk to first Pam Bliss, who is the artist working on the John Mellencamp mural on the side of the building. And Pam, before we even get in, I know I told you a little bit off the mic, but your work has blown me away with that mural out there. It is. I've drove by so many times because of the detail that's in it. It's just amazing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And let's go all the way back and start with, where did your passion for art come from?
Well, my mother said that I started drawing when I was 2. And she said that I drew a turkey at Thanksgiving, and she said that it wasn't the typical 2-year-old scribble. She said you could actually tell it was a turkey. And she said that I would draw day after day. I'd grab a pencil and piece of paper and just draw every day. And she said I would lay there all day long. I wouldn't even talk to anybody. I would just draw. And she said that she got worried about me one time because I just wasn't speaking to anyone. She wanted to see how long I would go without speaking to anyone. She said, so after a few days, I guess 3 or 4 days, I'm not sure how many days, she said it was a few days, she got worried about me and spoke to me just to see if I would respond to her. But she said I was really into drawing. But I took art classes in high school, or any time I could draw or do anything. But I had a teacher in I never painted until it was my last year of high school, and I had gone to California my last 2 years of high school, and I had a teacher tell me I couldn't paint out there, and I listened to her, and so I thought, okay, I can't paint. I know I can draw, but I can't paint. So I didn't start painting till I was 30 years old, because in my head, I didn't think I could paint. But what it was, she just didn't know how to teach painting, because she was an English teacher filling in one year for an art teacher. And so, but the kid, you're listening to authority. So, but I took a workshop. I always doodled, you drew, and all that stuff. I always did pencil and paper or pen and ink or whatever. But as far as painting, I was 30 years old and I took a workshop. And I thought, well, I know I can't paint, but I want to take this 4-day workshop. And then when I took the workshop, I thought, I can too paint. And so it just went from there. And
and the amazing thing, Pam, I'm a high school principal by trade, and what you just said is so true. The things that we say to kids, sometimes we don't realize the power of those words. And right there, you have an amazing talent. And because of this one teacher who told you, you can't do it, it took you several years to ever realize that I can do this.
Right. Yeah.
And so it is amazing. So once you figured out, okay, wait a second, I can paint, you're in this workshop, where do you kind of go from there to, continue that journey down this new medium?
Well, right after I took that workshop, I just happened to start college late. I was a late bloomer college. And so I had taken an art class as one of my first in my first schedule, and I wasn't going to college for art. I was going to be a teacher, so I could be home with my kids during the summer and that kind of stuff. But my art professor kept pushing me and kept pushing me and kept pushing me. So finally, I'm like, okay, fine, I'll be an artist. And but I knew I would always paint or draw or whatever, but I just never thought about it being my career, because in my head, and the other thing about it, my childhood, my dad thought art was stupid, and he was an engineer. He thought math was important. He said he didn't care if I did art as long as I got A's in math, which I did, because I like math. I approach my art more technically than I do. I'm more of a left brain artist, which is kind of odd how I approach it technically. Right brain is more creative, and it's a little bit harder for me to tap into the creative sometime because I'm just so focused on, making everything correct and, perfect. And going through college and how I got into murals is I was towards the end of my college, and I think it was probably the last year of my college, and someone came to town, and it was a small town. I was going to college in Richmond, Indiana, and someone wanted a mural done, and so she contacted the college there, and the art professor referred me because I had a high aptitude for portraits, and she wanted faces in this. She wanted figures in the murals, and so she asked me if I could paint this mural with 15-foot tall figures, and I said, oh, sure. And I never painted that big before. So I learned the very first mural. I learned really quick how to paint murals. It took me 4 months to paint that first mural.
Wow. And I'm sure when you talk about being more of a left-brained artist, talking about, the math background, I would think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that would help in the murals of figuring how to blow something up that large. Yes. And, how you space things, and that, because that's the other part that amazes me. And I'm not putting down anyone else's art, but, and not that I have no talent when it comes to art, first of all, Pam, I'll be the first to admit it. But when you do something on a canvas, it seems so much more controlled to me. When you're out there on a lift and you've got to move and you've got to see this entire brick wall, that's what just blows me away with what you do. So does that math background help in some of that?
I use basic algebra a lot of times when I'm doing, because I have to make calculations. I have to do a lot of measuring, make sure things are spaced how I need it to be spaced. So I do use algebra. So that math came in handy. Excuse me. But yeah, so I go about it mathematically, and then I sketch it out. I make sure things are measured correctly, and so I'll sketch it out, and then I'll block it in with colors, and then I start putting in detail, and that's when I have to get down an awful lot, step back and look at it, and I have to do an awful lot of observing for long periods of time, because when you're doing a canvas painting, you can see something you need to correct, and you step up, make the correction, and step back and look at it again. Well, it's not as convenient to do that when you're up 35 feet on a lift. So when you're down, you have to remember all your corrections. You have to remember what colors the corrections and the spacing corrections, and so you have to remember an awful lot, because a lot of times you have to, if you make the adjustment over here, then you probably need to make an adjustment over there. And so I have to do an awful lot of observing before I get back up, and a lot of times when I get down, I'll memorize a lot of things that I need to change, and then someone will come along and start talking to me and ask me questions, and it all goes out of my head. So as soon as
you're back to observing again.
Right. Yep.
And a lot of my friends who are artists always say that they don't know that they've ever truly finished a piece. Are you the same way with the murals you've done? If you go back by them, are you constantly I wish that lift was still here because I would touch this up or that up?
Mm-hmm. I am never done with it. I get to a point where I can say, okay, I'm done, but I'm truly never done.
If you had free reign to just keep going, you could work on it every day from here on out and still find things to make a little bit better.
Yeah, I'd probably be working on them forever. So,
and for me, when I look at what you've done outside, I think the most impressive thing to me are those subtle little details. It's the shadow off of John Mellencamp that makes him look like he's almost stepped off of the brick wall. It's those little things that really bring it to life that, maybe people don't notice as much, but it really encaptures the whole thing. Are those vital to the work you do there?
Oh, yeah. And those little things is what really takes the time, because, you can you draw something up there, draw a figure, and use a roller and paint it, and and you can call it done. But that's very flat. So it's all the little the subtle graduation of color and tones and little things like that is really what makes how things meet. When two areas meet, how you treat that makes all the difference in the world.
And when when we're talking about a canvas painter, they obviously have it. It's easier for them to mix paints and come up with certain colors they want. How are you coming up with those different shades and tones and things that you need? Are you mixing paint right there, to come up with it, or?
Yep.
So
yep.
you're your own mixing station.
I am my own mixing, unless it's a large area and I know that it needs to be a specific, the base of it is a specific color. Then I might get some mixed paint and put it on a large area. But for the most part, I use the basic red, yellow, blue, white, and black. I do have burnt umber and where's that raw umber? Yeah, burnt umber, and which is like a brown. Sometimes I get a green. Sometimes purples are really hard to. The big difference with this is I'm using exterior paint, which is basically house paint, and with those colors, those paints, you don't get really much potency as far as color. And so some colors are really hard to mix, like purple. It's really hard to get a really good, pretty purple because there's the blue. Blue is really expensive. If you buy artist paints, blue is really expensive. Red is too. And so if you have it in house paint, then they don't put as much pigment in, and it's got a lot of white. You don't realize it's got white in it. But so when you go to mix them up with the like purple, like the red and blue, it's more of a grayish. It's kind of purple, but it's
not vibrant. Doesn't have that.
Right. Yeah. Just because it's not artist colors.
And when you come into a mural like this, what all was given to you? Obviously, they wanted John Mellencamp. Were you kind of given free reign? Did they say these are the portraits we want? How did the whole piece kind of come together?
Well, when you're doing this kind of, it was kind of both. When you're dealing with a well-known person, you have to pay attention to, you have to get permission sometimes because, like, for instance, I did a Reggie Miller, and he owns his own likeness. Also, the NBA owns it too, and so
I
you have
did
to
not
go
know
through.
the NBA also owns his likeness as well as him.
Yep.
Wow.
You have to certain images now. So, like if I was just painting any generic person, then I could just do whatever. But like on Mellencamp, any kind of, I needed photographs of him. Since I didn't have the opportunity to take photograph of him myself, I had to depend on other people's photographs. Well, that's another art,
Right.
Photography is another art. You have to get permission. And so I told them that I need, to save time, I need some pictures that we already have permission that I can use. And so they sent me a few pictures. And so the pictures, what they sent me, I selected what I thought was the best representation of what they were wanting. They wanted young and old. And, because, he was, back in the heyday, he was popular, but he's still popular now. So, we did young and old. And so that was kind of a combination of both. I still had to depend on someone else's photography, but, I was able to lay it out on the wall how I wanted to. So,
and I think you nailed it, because the iconic Seymour FFA jacket is perfect in that young picture, but him in the black jacket and just so mature looking, what he is today, that more bluesy sound he's got today,
right.
Really comes through in your art.
Thank you.
So I want to also ask, were you a John Mellencamp fan? I know you can't be a fan of everything you paint, but were you a John Mellencamp fan prior to this painting?
As a young adult, I listened to his music, and so I'm familiar with all the songs. "Hurt So Good" and "Jack and Diane," and all of them. And so while I was painting on the mural, I was singing a lot. They were all Mellencamp songs, and so to get inspiration, I was singing his songs. So it's kind of nostalgic for me to paint this. I've been wanting to paint him for a long time, and knowing that he was an Indiana person. Yeah, come on in.
And just to ask this, while we're talking about that, does it add an extra layer to it too, with Mellencamp not only being the music artist he is, but he's also a painter?
Right.
Does that add a little bit to it as well? Knowing that he does have an eye for paint?
Adds a little bit of pressure, actually.
Yes. You may disagree. I think that even in the realm of, celebrity painters, he's actually considered very talented, not just
he is super talented.
Yeah, not just like I don't know what even word I'm looking for, but just a celebrity that does it. Like, he's really got an eye and can really paint some amazing art.
Yeah, I love his stuff. I wish I had that release to be able to do that kind of painting, because I'm so controlled, and my painting is so controlled. But I want to, I wanted to start painting them looser, much more loose. Hopefully this winter I'll be able to just go crazy on some canvases.
So, and going back to that, I know some of the family came in. I know some of the people have been here. What's the reaction that you've been hearing from a lot of the people around with the mural?
Excuse me. Excuse me. It's all been positive. For the most part, there was one lady that came up and she said, when they said that this was going to happen, I was against this. And she said, I thought it was stupid. Why are they spending this kind of money on, I'm so sorry, my phone.
You're okay.
And she said that she said, I see now. She said, I get it now. She said, I've done a complete turnaround. She said, I really like this, and I can see why they did it now. So, but most of the people that come up there, they're very complimentary, and they love Mellencamp. There's people. I met someone from Washington today that stopped through. There's been New York, Michigan, several, just a lot of different places. They've come. There's one lady came yesterday from Canada, specifically for this mural.
And that's amazing. And I've joked on our shows before. Not really joke, but it was. I grew up just south of here. West of here, about an hour and a half away. And while I listened to John Mellencamp, my parents listened to John Mellencamp growing up, and they always talked about him being from Seymour, Indiana. I thought he was like a regional guy. Like, I didn't think he was the superstar that he was, because at my age he wasn't on MTV anymore. But so I thought, okay, this guy's really cool. Like, he's a cool regional guy. And then when I got into high school, and I realized, oh no, like, he's like megastar.
Right.
It's amazing. So even more, you've got people from Canada coming down to get the opportunity to see this mural and the work you've done. Well,
I've heard today that it was on the news in Spain, even.
That's just amazing.
Yeah, because Mellencamp's worldwide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so what are some of the other murals that you've done in the past? You said you did a Reggie Miller one. What's some of the other ones you've done here around the state?
Reggie Miller, he is 60 feet tall, so he's almost twice as tall as the Mellencamp. It's the tallest one I've done. I've done a Kurt Vonnegut in Indianapolis. Reggie's in Indianapolis. Kurt Vonnegut's in Indianapolis. I've done really big jazz musicians in Indianapolis. I've got a lot of them over in the eastern part of the state. Because that's kind of where I'm from. That's really where I started, my murals. But so I've got a lot of them over there. Got one inside Bankers Life Fieldhouse.
That's awesome.
Of the retired Pacers. And so.
And going back to you talking about them owning their likeness. There was the Larry Bird mural in Indianapolis that just had all of the backlash because of the tattoos that was they painted with it,
right?
And having to go back and take those off. So you do have to make sure that you're honoring those people and their legacy,
right? Well, and like Larry Bird is big enough that if you painted a local person like the mayor or something, then that no one would probably think anything of it. Probably be kind of funny. But when you get as big as someone like Larry Bird, he has to pay attention to his reputation, and not to say anything against tattoos, but that's not who he is.
Absolutely.
And so he has to maintain his identity, and his identity is not tattoos. And so, I think he said he didn't have anything against tattoos. It just wasn't him. But
and even to the sense of him wanting to, it to be his likeness. If that's not him, what he's about, then you wouldn't want that there either.
Right.
Going forward, I know you said you got some big projects coming up that you're getting ready to go. Is there anything that you can tell us that you're getting ready to go work on?
Well, I'm going back to Cambridge City is where I'm from, a small town. So I appreciate Seymour. It's kind of like being home, a small town. I've done a few murals there, but I've done a few, and I've got another one coming up next summer. Of course, I have to take a break in the wintertime because I can't paint, when it's too cold. And so next summer I'll be painting one in Cambridge City. That was going to be of the Overbeck sisters, and they were 6 sisters who were in the arts. They did paintings, they did ceramics. They're all passed away now, but they all lived in the same house. Only one of them got married, but the rest of them, they had this little art factory, pumped out a lot of art, and so now their little sculptures and paintings are worth lots of money. So wow. I'm going to be. I did a 30-foot tall Abraham Lincoln in Cambridge City there. So, and then General Solomon Meredith, he was from Cambridge City, so I painted him. And Single G Racehorse, painted him. So this will be my 4th mural in little bitty Cambridge City. That's amazing.
So over the winter, when you've got to take a break with the murals, are you painting on canvas? Are you still doing drawing? What do you do to keep yourself busy then?
Well, fortunately, the last couple of winters, I went to California to paint on murals. I helped other artists for a month. It was an indoor mural. So I do indoor things, and the past couple of years, it has kept me busy enough that, but I would really like to have enough of a break that I can focus on doing some canvas works of my own so I can start having gallery shows instead of, all of my work is on. People ask me, well, where's your studio? Can I see some of your work? And I'm like, you have to drive around to see it.
It's all over every city I've been in.
Right.
And you talked too about you having to use the exterior paint. How long is the lifespan for a mural like this?
Well, it's depends on how well the wall is prepped. I mean, if you have a horrible wall that keeps peeling and you haven't prepped it, it won't last nearly as long as something that has been prepped. A mural can last for 40 years, especially if the southern exposure is the worst. Because it's the heat, it's direct sun all day long, and then your colors start fading a lot faster. Eastern and western exposure, that's the second worst. Northern exposure is the best because you don't get
have that
any
direct sun.
Right. So, the exposure. It depends on exposure, and it depends on how the wall is prepped. But there was one wall they didn't prep it properly, and I told them to put a concrete sealer on it. They did not, and so I had to go back and do some major corrections after 3 years. That was a big wall, but that's the only time I've ever had to do that. But it's because they didn't put the sealer on there. And then I've got other murals that they've been up for 20 years.
And that's got to be tough as an artist to go back and try and make those corrections. As we talked earlier, you struggle with even getting up, getting down, looking at how it looks in that. To come in and put fresh paint on an aged mural has to make it even more difficult so that it doesn't look like, that guy that wrecked their truck and the colors didn't match on the door, so now the door is that different shade. So that's got to be a tough thing for you going in and doing that.
Yeah. I think I lose a little bit when I have to go back and touch it up. I think because, it changes it just slightly. In the perfect world, it would just be left alone all the time, but for forever. But you do have to, like the Kurt Vonnegut, there was nothing wrong with the paint. He wasn't peeling or anything, but the reds started fading out of his face. Reds and yellows and oranges, they fade the quickest. So his reds and yellows started fading out of his face, and so he started looking green because the reds started fading first. So the blues and yellows were left in his face. He started looking green, so he started looking sick. So I had to go back in and freshen up his face with the reds. And the paint was just fine, but the colors just faded.
Pigment had faded out of it.
Right.
Well, if we want to here, let's take a break. I think we're gonna bring someone else in here and talk a little bit. So we'll be right back.
Thank you.
All right, and we're back here at Speaking from Experience, and we have Matt McDonald with us, one of the staff members here at This Old Guitar in Seymour, Indiana. And Matt, how long has the shop been here?
We've been in this location for 15 years now, I think, 16. We've been open 17 years.
And obviously, both you and your dad have a real passion for music. I caught you outside with, somebody was picking up a guitar, and you were talking about some of the work you had done on it. And where's that passion for this music come from for you?
Well, growing up, that's just what we did. I mean, on Friday nights as a kid, I'd go over to my uncle's house, and they would all sit around and play Gordon Lightfoot and John Denver, and my aunts would come over and sing, and everybody would play guitar, and it's just always been something that our whole family's always done.
And that's something that's really gone away, because I can remember being at my great-grandparents' house, and they'd sit out on the front porch, and the neighbors would come down, and somebody played this and somebody played that, and others were singing, others were just tapping their feet with the beat, and it was like you had a concert on the front porch all the time. And that's really gone away today.
Yeah, it really has. And like I said, it was a big part of my childhood, and it was half the time we weren't even in there, hardly listening, or we were, but it was just a fun family thing, and we'd all get together, and for years, we'd all get together, everybody bring their guitar. And so as we got older and all the, kids got older, they started bringing their guitars over, and it's just been something that we've always done and enjoyed.
And it's got to be a lot of fun, too, as the younger kids start coming up. You get a little bit of that clash of the different genres of music, too. You go a little bit from Gordon Lightfoot and John Denver to some of that newer age stuff, maybe a little Mellencamp and some other things as those generations come around, and that meshing of all those different sounds.
Yeah, and it actually it's really surprising because of a lot of the kids come in and they want to hear Johnny Cash, and they want to hear like Country Roads by John Denver, and I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, you're kidding, this is what you, and they're like, yeah, that's what I want to learn because it was my grandpa's favorite song, or that's what reminds me of, and it's really neat to see the younger generation still respecting and playing the old music, so it's fun.
And it is fun to see how when they discover that. Being a high school principal, I love when I see kids, and it's funny to me when they find a Johnny Cash song or something. They're like, you won't believe this song, and I'm like, no, I will, because It's been around.
Exactly.
It's been around on vinyl, on 8-track, on cassette, CD. You just found it on iTunes, but it's been around in a lot of other versions prior to you getting a hold of it. So, what all instruments do you play?
I mainly just do rhythm acoustic guitar. I'm not a big lead guy. I don't get into all that. I just enjoy playing basic rhythm acoustic. It's my favorite thing to play.
Awesome. And obviously here in the shop, this old guitar, you guys offer lessons. You obviously offer instruments. You know, what really all can someone coming down to the shop find here?
I'd say the best part about the store really is the lessons and how close all of our students we become and the families. It's more like a family type atmosphere when everybody comes in for lessons, and we do brothers and sisters from ages 5 and 6 years old all the way up, and so that's about the best, I think. It's the most fun part of our job as well, is that we get to know all these kids, we get to know their parents and their families, and the next thing you know, they're playing at church Sunday, or they're doing the Oktoberfest, talent show and all that kind of stuff. It's just really good time.
And it is a really cool setup, because as I came in, you guys have got the lounge area over here for the parents with or siblings with TV. It's a very laid back atmosphere. So if you have a kid that's coming here, I've got kids involved in things, and this is a pretty nice place if you're going to have one involved to hang out while they're taking a lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that, and we thrive on that, and it's a lot of fun.
So let's talk a little bit here. I just got done talking with Pam about the John Mellencamp mural, and obviously, and I was telling her, and I'll tell you as well, this is kind of my funny John Mellencamp story, but growing up, and that was kind of in the lull between Mellencamp being on MTV. I'm a 90s kid. I was born in 85. So when I started hearing Mellencamp, my parents playing it, he wasn't right there. I really, truly believed he was some like regional musician, because my parents said, well, he's just from Seymour, Indiana. He's from right up the road. To me, he's this regional guy. Man, he's pretty good for a regional guy. And then as I got older and realized, whoa, he's way bigger than what I ever thought he was. And it's so cool to see you guys honoring that, with the side of the building here. And so how did that all kind of come about for this old guitars building to be the spot for the mural?
Well, most of that would be that obviously my dad and John were classmates, and that kind of led up to it. And then through the years, he's donated and really helped a lot with a lot of our benefits and our charities, and just always been a part of the community. Just people may not know that behind the scenes, but he's done a lot for the community over the years. And then obviously this conversation started 6 or 7 years ago to get the approvals and to get the okay to go ahead and honor him and put it on the side of the building. So yeah, we're really, really excited that it's finally come full circle, and it's going to turn out really nice, and I think it's going to be a good thing to draw people. I mean, we've had people already from California and Chicago. I had a couple this evening that were here from Germany that just heard about it on Facebook or something, and they weren't here just for that from Germany, but they stopped by and said, oh, this is neat, and then it just draws a little bit more attention from people out of town, and hopefully, get everybody paying more attention to downtown. That's our main focus with it.
And I'm glad you said that, because I think sometimes people do think that he got too big for this area, and that's not true in the any sense. He has been a great supporter of a lot of things around here, and I can remember, even I grew up in Mitchell, Indiana. It was a big deal for us. We would see him at the local Arby's. He'd go down to Spring Mill State Park, and he'd be sitting there at the local Arby's, and we all knew, just don't bother him. To say hi to him as you leave. He'd be very polite, be hi, but don't be over there trying to take pictures with him, get autographs, do all that. He's there with his family having a great time, and he was always very down to earth when we would see him, and I've never seen anything else from him other than that.
Yep, I agree.
And Matt, so to kind of finish up here, obviously your dad's connection to John, does that make you automatically a Mellencamp fan, or did you come by it just naturally, or was this, he really does have a sound that I'm really into?
I hate to admit this. I've only been to 2 of his shows, and that was probably in the last year or two. Always was a fan of his music, but not like ever, you know what I mean? I guess it must be my age or something like that. But yeah, I went and saw him at Louisville Palace, and it was one of the best shows that I've seen. It was amazing. Now I get it. Now I get why everybody is so, it was a great show. So yeah, growing up, it was more. The only funny Mellencamp story I got real quick is I had his Crumbling Down album, and I decided I was going to hang it on my bedroom wall. And I hung up the album and forgot that I left the album inside the cover. So I drove like a number 8 right through the album and cracked it and hung it on my wall. But to this day, I still wish I had the album. But anyway.
That's about as legitimate Crumbling Down as you can get, is running a number 8 right through
I guess so, yeah.
Matt, and I can agree with you. I've grown up and been a fan, but I'll be honest, I like a lot of his newer stuff now, and kind of the bluesy, jazzy feel he's brought into a lot of his stuff, even from the early stuff that he did. So that's why I was excited seeing the Mural, that it honored both his young days, obviously in the Seymour FFA jacket, and then more of his elder statesman of the music industry that he's become now.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Matt. Well, I appreciate it, man, and thanks for all your insight and everything that you guys do here at This Old Guitar. And if you're looking for a great place for a child to take lessons, come down, see Matt and Larry, and get them signed up for something.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time.
All right. Have a great night.
You too.
All right, and welcome back here to Speaking from Experience. I'm here with Larry McDonald, owner of This Old Guitar. And Larry, number one, first of all, this is my first time being able to be in the store, and it's a really amazing place. Not only is it obviously all the instruments that you have out here and what people can come in, but what you've set up for lessons and for families to be able to come in and get training is pretty amazing.
Well, thank you very much. The store has been here about 17 years, and we've been incredibly blessed by all the instructors that have been here for a while, and they do a great job.
And I want to go back. Obviously, I'm here tonight. I've gotten the chance to talk about the mural outside, but you've got a pretty special connection to the guy, John Mellencamp, being a friend as you guys grew up. And so how did that relationship start? I believe you were a drummer for him as well. Yeah. So kind of how'd that relationship start and carry on through the years?
Well, we both were in the same class. We graduated in 1970. And so grew up in high school and junior high with John. And back then you could drive a block and hear a garage band. Seymour was flooded probably as well as other counties surrounding us, but I'm telling you could drive a block and hear a garage band. And back then, if you got mad in one band, you just joined another band. And I don't know. Throughout the years, we've managed to keep some of those bands alive and well, and some of them still perform. And obviously, John had the talent and the desire to take it to the level he's at today.
And it's really pretty amazing watching the arc of his career. I mean, when you go back to talking about when they wanted him to be Johnny Cougar and create that whole persona, to when he got back to his roots with some of that stuff. And even today, I was telling Matt when he was on here, I love his newer stuff as much as I love the older stuff. That he's got that more bluesy jazz kind of southern feel to things now, and that's some of my favorite music he's done.
Yeah, he's done a lot of songs. I mean, back through the years, I think he left in 72, 73 for his first tour. And I don't know exactly how many albums he's produced, but I mean, there's a lot of them, a lot of hits. And I like his latest stuff as well. We've managed to get some of the albums out here on the wall of his collection. And of course, this mural just excites me beyond words to have that on the side of the music store.
And I got to be honest, and Matt and I talked about that. I think the greatest thing about it, and Pam, I got to talk to her about kind of the planning of it. You guys kind of gave both sides of his career. There's the young, iconic Seymour FFA jacket, which you'd be remiss if you didn't have that there. Yeah. But then the elder statesman, the mature John Mellencamp, standing there in the black, jacket, with the experience of the years he's put in the music industry. I don't know that you could have had a more fitting piece.
No, and John brought a lot of attention to Seymour. A lot of folks haven't heard of Seymour till John Mellencamp, and when we started this mural project, it was about 5 years ago. We've been doing this for 5 years. A couple of us were attempting it, and it was just way too big of a project for two of us to try to grab a hold of. And then 3 or 4 years ago, two of the buildings next to this old guitar actually almost burned to the ground. So that set us back the store got some damage. And so that set us back another year of talking about the mural. And then City Hall, I asked Jana Plump. Jana Plump works over at City Hall. And I took my idea and my urge to get this on the side of the music store to her and ask her if she would get Mayor Ludeman involved. And Mayor Ludeman got involved, and that's when this thing started picking up some speed. And I just don't know how we could have done it without his help, to be honest with you.
And you're exactly right. Not only has he brought that recognition to Seymour, but it was amazing talking to Pam and Matt. And you've had people from Canada and Germany and Washington and California that have already visited, and the mural's not even done yet. And it's just amazing.
I get asked that question a lot. And in the last, even before the mural, we had the pleasure, I'm going to guess 7-8 years ago, John asked A&E to come in here and film his biography. And I'm telling you, what an honor. I mean, the national television came in here with cameras, and we got the opportunity to get some national recognition out of that. And to be honest with you, what it bought, besides the recognition of this old guitar, is it brought recognition to Seymour. And what people do for the last 5 years, they come in and they take pictures. And that was the whole intent behind it, because I'm not here to sell somebody in Canada a guitar. No. And so they come in for the history of the building and for the history of John Mellencamp. And when I was a kid, this was a drugstore. I mean, I grew up in this building. It was called Baldwin's Drugstore, and then later became Beaver's Pharmacy when Baldwin retired. Okay. And I'd come in here, and there was a soda fountain out there, and I'd get me a cherry Coke, and I'd walk across the street to, I think it was Silver's Music Store, and I took drum lessons there every Saturday morning, 10 o'clock, for about 4 years. And what a wonderful, wonderful memory I have every time I come in the door of this place. And now I've been blessed to have my son working here with me. And it's a great family store. Wife works in here part-time. Fact is, I've kind of made her the tour guide. If you come in, we had probably 30 people in here since Friday, walking through, taking pictures. Had his fan club in here Saturday, and I don't know if you saw that on Facebook, but they did sang Small Town. I did see it. Oh, just I'm telling you, that's priceless. That was so much fun doing that with them. And this week we've got the FFA is coming in from Alabama. And they're going to the FFA convention in Annapolis this weekend. And I've also got the Seymour High School FFA that's going to be here Friday for pictures. So we're going to have the FFA local and out of state in here this week to get their picture taken next to John and Mural in the FFA jacket that he's wearing. And Larry, I don't want to keep you. I know you got another lesson here coming, but I just want to say, first of all, thank you for not only what you're doing to put Seymour on the map with this old guitar, but also what you're doing for local kids. And, like you just said, and Matt and I talked kind of about, growing up in your family and the music that was there. And I said, my great-grandparents were the same way. Everybody played something. You get on the front porch and you play. That's kind of gone away. And it's so cool to see just the time I've been here, the kids coming in and out, getting lessons, keeping that music alive. And who knows when the next John Mellencamp may walk into this shop right here and walk out and be the next star. Yeah, and it's a blessing every day I walk in the door. I love it. Love what I do. Well, we appreciate it. Thank you for giving the side of your building to honor him and draw some attention to Seymour. And I truly appreciate you letting me come in today and talk here and get to talk to you guys. Good. It's been my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Larry.